talk more about some of the issues facing voters on Sunday, Turkish presidential spokesperson and advisor Ibrahim Kalin joins me now live in the studio. Thanks so much for coming in. First, I'd just like to hear your response to the critics we spoke about earlier, both at home and abroad, who say that rescheduling this election was actually calculated by the AK Party to ensure they won't have to suffer from both a failing economy and what they see as some failing national security policies.
Well, that's not the case, obviously. What some people describe as failing economy actually is a failing description of what really happened last year and this year in the first quarter. Last year, Turkey scored 7.4% growth rate, and in the first quarter this year, we reached the same goal, and that remains to be the course for the Turkish economy. Obviously, in line with some of the international fluctuations in the stock markets, etc. From time to time, you see some ups and downs in the Turkish markets, but overall, Turkish economy is very strong. You see this in the businesses that were created. For example, the unemployment rate, has dropped a little bit more, and we have created more than 300,000 jobs and over the last year. So, I mean, that's a very good sign of the strength of the Turkish economy.
But the currency is struggling, and that hurts everyone. And that's what's also a barometer outside the country as to the health of the domestic economy.
Well, certainly we have things to do, actually, to keep things under control as far as the currency is concerned, but also you have to see the larger picture of what's happening, internationally, what the Fed is doing with the interest rates, etc. But I think we will overcome this. But in regards to the issue of holding these early elections because of economic concerns, in fact, the proposal did not come from us. If you remember, the proposal came from one of the opposition parties, and the other opposition parties picked up on it. And they said, okay, so we will go for early elections. They could have rejected it. They could have said, no, we don't want early elections. In fact, our president has said on many occasions that the elections were going to be held in time, that is next year in November. But when he saw this call and kind of the growing coalition around this, or consensus, he said, okay, let's go for it. And I think it will help the Turkish economy in other ways, but also as far as the security issues are concerned, as well as other major projects that we are undertaking in the country, that will clear up the ground. There will be no ambiguities as to when the elections will be held. We'll have to wait for another year, etc. So I think that will speed up a lot of things as far as the major projects are concerned.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because that was another issue that some people took up, was that actually when the AK Party was saying that this will help us move forward more strongly on national security and foreign policy issues, they were saying, no, you're actually disrupting a momentum right now in operations both Iraq and Syria that are bad for national security. But you don't see it as any sort of disruption.
No, not at all. I mean, look at how we concluded, for example, the Euphrates Shield operation, right after, just a few months after the July 15 coup attempt a year and a half ago. Everybody said that, well, the Turkish army is not strong enough. They just went through a coup attempt, etc. But in fact, we ended up with a very successful operation where we have cleared more than 3,000 kilometer area from the Daesh terrorists. We have avoided civilian casualties, and now Syrian civilians who are in Turkey are going back to their homes and towns. Same thing happened in Afrin, where many commentators thought that this was going to take months, there will be casualties, etc. We have avoided all of that, and we have completed that operation very successful. Our Turkish army is very strong, and Turkish intelligence is working very hard. In fact, if you look at the map in Syria at the moment, you see something that you've never seen anywhere else. I think that's a success of Turkish diplomacy. In the west of Syria, in the Afrin and Idlib area, we have worked out the situation on the ground with the Russians and the Iranians and secured all these areas. In the east of the country, we have worked with the Americans and reached a solution in regards to Manbij. Right. So Turkey is the only country that is able to do this, with two different sets of countries in Syria, while taking care of the refugees. But let me just say one thing as far as the international media and the Turkish elections are concerned. I know they cover Turkish media from different angles, that's fine. They can be critical, that's fine. But the same media outlets that are very critical of anti-immigrant politicians in Europe and in the United States are saying nothing about the opposition candidates who claim that when they are elected, the next day they will send these 4 million Syrian refugees back to Syria. Now, when that populist anti-immigrant discourse is raised in Europe, that is condemned, that is criticized. But some of the candidates in the Turkish elections are exactly repeating the same line. Our position is that, of course, we would like to see the Syrians to go back, provided that the situation is safe, under control, and they can go back in safety. We are not going to force them, obviously, but we want to make sure that when they go back, they go back to safe places.
You obviously feel there are a lot of flaws and contradictions, if not hypocrisy, in foreign media coverage of Turkey. Yeah. And since we cater to an international audience here, let's talk about this. There is an image of Turkey abroad, as you know, that's not necessarily positive. In fact, some people ironically see it as a somewhat scary place. We even had an entire program about, is Turkey bordering on the brink of dictatorship here? People think political dissent isn't really tolerated, and you believe that's a very strong misperception. Yeah. But it persists. It persists. This negative image of Turkey and its politics persists abroad. Why?
Well, first, just a few facts. We have free and fair elections. Candidates are running their campaigns. Political parties are running their campaigns. We have five candidates running for president, and we have political parties, 5 or 6, I think, are running, and they are holding their rallies. Nobody is, preventing them from holding rallies and on TV or in big halls or in, outside, and they're expressing their views and they're making their election promises, etc. Secondly, if you look at how the elections are run, in fact, we have international monitors, and we have an election committee, and political parties are members, in this election committees also. So no one can really rig anything because all the parties are there. They can make sure that things are transparent and free and fair. But obviously, the strength of President Erdogan is projected as a dominance of Turkish politics, but. You cannot criticize a political figure for holding office successfully for too long. If you're going to make that criticism, then you will have to make the same criticism to Angela Merkel, for example. She was elected the 4th time, right? She's the longest serving political figure in Europe.
But sometimes, for foreign viewers, it comes down to what you might see as minutia, for example. They'll just look at it. The political landscape here is very complicated, as it is in many countries, and difficult for outsiders to understand. Yeah. So they'll just say, well, this is a party that banned Wikipedia. This is a party that has arrested people for saying politically sensitive things over Twitter. How do you overcome that? Well,
first of all, Turkey faces a number of challenges that may not be apparent at first sight to some outside viewers. We are dealing with the PKK terrorism, we are dealing with Daesh or ISIS terrorism. We have avoided a coup attempt less than 2 years ago. We are dealing with the FETÖ terrorists who carried out this coup attempt, a number of other security challenges. We have a war going on to our south in Syria. We have a refugee issue, not us, but around us, and we have managed that situation there. So you have to see this all in context, actually, to understand what's happening. But for example, look at President Erdogan's figure. He's been in power for 16 years as prime minister and as president, and the closest competitor is still trailing him by about 25 points in the polls. That in itself is something, I think, that has to be taken into account. I'd say something about the social and political realities in Turkey. What I see in the Western media is rather a very unfair misrepresentation of the facts on the ground. They usually miss the nuances, they miss the fine points, and honestly, they keep failing in their predictions of the election outcomes. We've seen this in the past. Now they are running stories claiming that Erdogan is set to lose, etc. We will see on Sunday. According to our polls, he's set to win the elections again, and will have a majority at the parliament. So my point is that if you keep failing at the same thing over and over again, if you were a meteorologist and you keep failing at your predictions, there will be sanctions, there will be consequences for this. But some of these analysts keep making the same mistake, and so my point is that they should represent an image of Turkey based on facts rather than some twisted images or some selective reading of the realities on the ground.
Okay, we've just got a minute left, and I have to ask you about this because you did allude to it when you were speaking about Syria and Turkey's foreign policy. The U.S. hasn't behaved in a way that Turkey is at all satisfied with. I mean, they're supposed to be NATO allies here, and the United States has continued to back the YPG in Syria, no matter what alternative Turkey seems to come up with. How is that going to be managed? I mean, can we at least say it's moving in a more positive direction now that this roadmap with Manbij is being enacted and you are cooperating with the United States from what we're seeing? Is it moving in a more positive direction? Because it's not sustainable to have this kind of conflict with a NATO
The
ally.
Manbij agreement is a step in the right direction. We would like to build on that momentum. It took us some time to reach that agreement, and I think you will see it's going to work to the benefit of the Syrians themselves on the ground, because Manbij is an Arab town and the local residents will be coming back. It helps our alliance with the United States and our work against terrorism. But the larger issue remains on the table, and that is the fact that the United States has chosen, from the Obama time to the present administration, to work with PKK Syria branch, which is really not acceptable. I mean, if any other NATO ally country or any other country will do something like that, that is like a splinter or another branch of a PKK or similar terrorist organization, and you will be working with them, that will be unacceptable. So that's our main concern here. You cannot defeat one terrorist organization with another. Every support that is given to PYD, YPG in Syria is a direct or indirect support for the PKK, and we suffer from the consequences. So we've raised this issue. We strongly support and work for Syria's territorial integrity and political stability. That's why we have the Astana process as well as the Geneva process. And we would like to bring these two processes closer to one another. But to do that, we have to eliminate all threats of terrorism, whether it's Daesh or PKK or other terrorist elements in Syria, so that Syrians can be safe, but also we can also protect our borders.
I think we have about 30 seconds left, and I'm going to touch on a huge topic here. But I mean, do you see EU-Turkey relations improving if you are reelected? Is that something you're going to make a priority, or has Turkey, in a sense, kind of decided maybe the EU, the dreams or whatever aspirations to join the EU have they're not that important really to the Turkish people anymore?
We have a long-standing relationship with Europe. We have good relations with a number of European countries. We have some differences with some EU countries or European countries. Europe is bigger than the EU. Joining the EU as a full member remains a priority, but it takes the two to tango.
Right.
In order for the story to move forward, we have to see some steps taken by the EU countries, like, for example, on the migration deal, on the visa liberalization, on opening up new chapters. We haven't seen that from the European side yet.
Okay, Ibrahim Kalin, very unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
My
coming
pleasure.
in.